I've been working in the IT industry for 18 years. Actually, it's 20, but I put 18 just to look younger. And I work for Make Sense Software Services. We are a Salesforce partner based here in Australia. And I've been working with MuleSoft since 2018, mostly with integration and APIs. But recently, I've been working a lot with Hyperautomation and MuleSoft RPA. And I have these certifications here, and the most recent one is the Hyperautomation Specialist, which I will be talking about in this presentation. And hopefully I can give you some tips in case you are interested in taking this exam. So this is the agenda for today. First, we're going to talk about RPA, Robotic Process Automation, and then we are going to see how it evolved from RPA to Hyperautomation, and then we're going to dip a little bit deeper in MuleSoft RPA, and then I'm going to run a live demo where I am going to show an integration with a MuleSoft API running in my Anypoint Studio with a MuleSoft RPA automation. So then in the end, I will talk about the next steps, including the certification exam, and we will also have some time for some Q&As. So if you are online, also feel free to send questions in the chat. So without further ado, let's get started. So RPA, Robotic Process Automation. So let's see how this started. So the roots of automation, basically in the organizations, we have many processes. Business processes, they are just a sequence of tasks that can involve many different technologies. These tasks they have a beginning and an end, and for each of these tasks, we need we have a business person, so a human being. So let's go back a little bit in time. Let's imagine we are in the 90s now, in the late 90s, and we didn't have MuleSoft at that time. We didn't have REST APIs, so things were much more difficult back then. So usually you would have a human being doing all the integration manually, and he would also run these processes manually. So the business analyst would execute each of these tasks. So this business analyst, he acts as a process integrator. So the problems with manual process is that, well, we have a few problems. So first of all, as humans, we are slow. So we cannot work 24/7. We need to take breaks. And we will never be as fast as a machine, right? So we have that disadvantage. And also we are error prone. Whenever we have manual processes, we have errors. That's just how things work. And also these kinds of processes we are talking about here, they are not any kind of process. We're talking about repetitive process. It needs to be a process that happens very frequently. Otherwise, it makes no sense in automating, right? So if it's a process that happens very frequently, like 100 times a day, this can be very tedious. This is very boring. No one likes to do this same process over and over again, right? And it's also expensive, because it's expensive for an organization to maintain all of this manual process, which are really time consuming. And if you have a business analyst that leaves the company, for example, then you need to train someone else, and there is a learning curve. So this is expensive. And RPA came just to try to mitigate these problems. So the concept of RPA is very simple. It's basically just replacing this human being, this business analyst, with a robot or an RPA bot. who would then become the process integrator. So the benefits of RPA are we can scale productivity, reduce costs, reduce errors, free up time for humans, elevate security, increase return over investment. So which company wouldn't like this thing? So every organization would like this, right? So, but do you think that RPA was able to fulfill all of these high expectations? Actually, in the beginning, RPA had many problems. But the good thing about problems is that whenever we have a problem, we have an opportunity to learn and to improve, right? So that's what happened with RPA. So we had many issues in the past, and as we started to overcome these issues, overcome these problems, RPA started to evolve, right? So in the beginning, it was really difficult. So to see why, let's understand a little bit how RPA works. So basically, when you have a process that you want to automate, then you would need a new actor here, a new persona who is called the RPA developer. The RPA dev, he will need to work very closely to the business analyst because he doesn't understand the rules. The business analyst understands the rules, so he needs to explain each of these tasks, how it works manually, so the RPA dev can script each of these tasks and program the bot to execute the tasks automatically. So they would need to validate this. So we would need like a test environment, a staging environment, and you would need to run this process multiple times because only with a lot of repetition, you can have a really mature process. So once this is all validated, then this process would go into production. This process becomes an automated process. So now that this is automated, what will the business analyst do now? He will just sit back and relax and do nothing? Well, ideally, yes, but that's not how things happen. Because, as I said, we as humans, we are error prone, but we have an advantage over the robots, especially these robots from the beginning of RPA. So here, back then, in the late 90s or 2000s, we didn't have artificial intelligence as we have today. Obviously, there was artificial intelligence at that time, but it was not as accessible as it is today. So basically, these bots were really dumb. And any change in the environment would break the automation. So these technologies, they are constantly changing. They are releasing new versions all the time. So here, it's just a simple change in the UI, like a button changing its name, would be enough to break this whole process. So that's how RPA was in the beginning. It was really fragile. The automation was not intelligent. And also, the business rules, as we all know as developers, the business people, they like to change rules all the time. So that's also something that can break the process automation. So whenever the process breaks, you would need the RPA dev to fix it and then redeploy it. But he doesn't know how to do that by himself. He needs help from the business analyst. So the business analyst would explain to him how to fix this, and then he would very commonly also have to manually run this, manually execute this process because this was in production and it never completed. So the business analyst would constantly have to also do some manual executions as well. So here we can see how it was challenging to work with RPA in the beginning. So here we have a graph of effort over time. So as the effort for the business was increasing, the organization here decided to invest in RPA. So when they started the RPA implementation, you would have a big effort by the RPA developer who would have to implement all of the programming, and also bot resources, because the bots, they need environments, they need access, just as a human need. But okay, all of these efforts are from RPA developer and infrastructure. So the idea here is to remove the load from the business analyst. That's the goal here. So, but what happens in the implementation is that the effort of the business would go up. So you would have a spike here, which is when the business is supporting the RPA implementation. But okay, after some time, the bot will start to work, to do some actual work, and then he will see some reduction in his effort. But very commonly, he would need to support the automation, just as we saw in the previous slides. And also, he would need to complete failing scenarios as well. So what was happening very commonly in the past was that in the end, you wouldn't have a real gain from RPA, because the effort just shifted from performing the manual tasks to supporting the automation. And this can be summarized in this phrase here, which says, automation should be serving humans, not the other way around. If we are serving the automation, then automation just lost its purpose, right? So now let's see how things evolved over time. So here now we have hyperautomation. So what is hyperautomation? If you get something like RPA, Robotic Process Automation, and you combine it with artificial intelligence and machine learning, then you have something much powerful. And as we know, artificial intelligence had some amazing progress and evolution in the recent years, and this is also making hyperautomation more and more powerful. And if you add also things like natural language processing and business process modeling, integrations as a service, integration platform as a service, like we have Anypoint platform, for example, and then you create the concept of automation as a service. So all of these things together, they create what we call hyperautomation. So hyperautomation is not just RPA now. It's a combination of many things, not just these ones that I am showing here, but others as well. So this is how automation is evolving, and it has become something much bigger than just RPA. So hyperautomation is a business-driven, disciplined approach that organizations use to rapidly analyze and automate as many business and IT processes as possible by orchestrating multiple technologies. This is the definition by Gartner. This is not just something that Salesforce is doing, but many other vendors are investing in automation, in hyperautomation. And the market size forecast shows that this is growing at annual growth rate of about 20%. So by 5 years from now, this should be like more than double its market size. So it's something that the organizations are investing a lot. And we can actually feel that at Make Sense. We're having many clients asking for hyperautomation, and this has been growing a lot recently. And so before we take a look at Salesforce Hyperautomation, I just want to talk a little bit about this concept of API first. This is a very important concept here that especially MuleSoft developers who work mostly with any point platform, APIs, integration, we need to understand this when we are talking about hyperautomation, because if you think about it, what have we been doing with any point platform, with APIs? It's not just integration, it's also automation. Because if we for example, we create an API that reads data from a CSV file and loads Salesforce, for example, and this is also an automation, because otherwise you would need a human or a bot to open an Excel file and then open Salesforce and navigate to the form and then manually add this data into Salesforce. So when we create an API, we're not just doing integration, but we are also doing automation. And the important thing here to notice is that API automation, it's always more effective than UI automation. So RPA, it's a UI automation. Let me give you another example. So if we want to integrate something with ChatGPT, for example, if we want to do this with a UI, we could, with a UI automation, create a bot that goes into OpenAI website, signs in, and then type the prompt, executes the prompt, and then grabs the results, and then do something with this result. We could do this with a bot, with UI automation, but we could also do it with an API, because OpenAI has an API for us that allows us to prompt ChatGPT, and it would be much better solution to use the OpenAI API, right? So the concept of API first is that we should always try to use an API whenever we can. So that is why Salesforce acquired MuleSoft RPA, because we can do automation with APIs, but there are certain scenarios where it's not possible. For example, if we want to read unstructured data like an image or a PDF file, that's very difficult to do with an API. And also, some legacy systems, they don't have an API. And that's actually the example I will show in the demo, where we try to create an integration with a legacy e-commerce application that doesn't have any API. So how do you integrate that? How do you automate that? So that's why Salesforce acquired RPA, because now we can reach some data, we can unlock data that was previously not possible. Okay, so going now into Salesforce Hyperautomation. As we know, hyperautomation, it's a combination of many technologies. So in Salesforce, we have all of these and more. This is actually outdated. Did you know that just today, Salesforce released a new product called MuleSoft IDP, Intelligent Document Processing, and which is also part of the hyperautomation. This was released today. Actually, you can have access to it. And flow orchestration, let's go from top down. Flow orchestration, it's also a feature of a Salesforce that allows us to create workflows within an organization, within different departments of the organization. And then Flow Builder, it's also part of Salesforce. It was previously known as Process Builder. So you can create some processes in Salesforce. And The interesting thing here to notice is that here in the third row, you have Anypoint APIs and Flow RPA, which is MuleSoft RPA. And as you can see here, you have assets. These are assets that we can publish in Anypoint Exchange and then reuse. This is the concept of automation as a service, because we all know that we can create APIs and then reuse the APIs. So you can reuse an API in your flow builder, in your flow orchestration, and this one in the bottom is MuleSoft Composer, which is also a user interface that's designed mostly for business analysts, so they can compose their flows using MuleSoft Composer. And they have many pre-built connectors within MuleSoft Composer. And you can also deploy your APIs to Exchange, and then in MuleSoft Composer, you can reuse these APIs. And the same thing happens with automation. So when we publish an automation in Exchange, it becomes available as an asset. So here, with this concept of automation as a service, you don't need to create an end-to-end automation. This is the same thing of creating a point-to-point integration. We can make this analogy. So using this reusability in the Anypoint platform, we can create some automation pieces that can be reused. So the business analyst can compose different flows using the same assets. So this is automation as a service. This is a really game changer for automation. And this is the more recent one, where you can see the ecosystem of hyperautomation in Salesforce. We have IDP, Intelligent Document Processing, which is a new feature that allows you to read and extract data from a PDF file, for example, an invoice. And we already had that in RPA with OCR, which is Optical Character Recognition. But if you extract data from a PDF file, let's say, for example, an invoice, but you have just a big string of text, that's not very useful, because how do you know what is what in this big string of text? Now, with IDP, artificial intelligence can structure all of the data from the invoice into a JSON object. So it will tell you who is the name of the person in the invoice, the amount paid, the address. And it doesn't matter if you have many invoices with different layouts. It will just know, using artificial intelligence, what is what. So this is really something really powerful. And we can now have access to it. We just need to ask for the MuleSoft contact to provision this feature for us. So it's something that I strongly recommend. And this here, you can also see that many of these features have the Einstein logo here, because Einstein is our AI agent, right, in Salesforce. And Einstein is also getting more and more powerful. So first, Einstein was just a chatbot. Now it's a co-pilot that can help you to build code. It can, in IDP, for example, it will use an artificial intelligence to get data from the document that you are processing. And so Einstein is becoming more integrated with all of these features in the automation package. So the way this works for our clients is that we have an automation package that will give you some credits. So the clients, they will start with a predefined number of credits, and then in RPA, for example, every minute the bot is working, it will consume the credits. And every time you use Composer, it will consume your credits. That's how the pricing works in automation. So let's move to the next one. So now let's compare with the previous graph of effort over time, how things are evolving now. So we have the same situation here. So we also have the RPA developer. So I've been working as an RPA developer, but we don't need to automate everything using MuleSoft RPA because we have all of these other tools. We have the APIs. So I will try to do everything using APIs first. And so the amount of automation you need to do with UI automation, it decreased a lot. So there's so you don't have all of that effort by RPA developers. And here you have existing API assets. So we have all of these APIs that we can use. We can create and we can reuse these assets as well. So here you will see now that the business, he will own the automation. So if they want to create a new flow using an existing automation, they can do that. So they don't rely on the RPA dev to do everything. So they benefit from the reuse and the existing assets and all of these other tools that Hyperautomation has. And then here, this is what we need. This is what we need to achieve as Hyperautomation practitioners. This is our goal. This is what we need to do. We need to actually save time and costs. So with the Hyperautomation, we need to see the effort of the business decreasing. And this is now much more easily done with Hyperautomation than it was with just RPA. So these are some surveys. This is a report from Salesforce, and this is what the organizations are saying about Hyperautomation, how it increased efficiency, productivity, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, because if your employers don't need to do this manual tasks all the time that are really tedious and repetitive and boring, they will also be satisfied. It will decrease costs and also the ability to scale. So all of this now it's working. This is a report with IT leaders. It's a research that Salesforce did. So now just let's have a quick look at RPA, MuleSoft RPA with more detail. So this is the RPA lifecycle. So it all starts with evaluation. So this is what we call process mining. So we need to, before we start automating something, we need to understand if this process is actually good for automation. We need to check if it's stable, and then RPA Manager, which we will see in the next slide, has some tools to do this evaluation before we start designing. So then the next phase is design, where we create this BPMN, business process modeling, diagrams, and then we go to the build phase where we actually implement the automations. Then we have all of these features that allows us to do some testing. We can create all of the tests that will run with our automation. We have reports, we have logs, and then we have the production. Also, we can see the logs. We can monitor all of our automations that are in production, and then the operation. So this is the life cycle, and these are the tools that we have with MuleSoft RPA. We have RPA Manager, which is a platform, web platform that you need to ask MuleSoft to provide this to your organization, and the user management is done on your endpoint platform. In user management, in access management, you can give the permission for your users to have access to RPA with different roles, with developer or tester or business. And then we have RPA Recorder, which is just a tool that will help us to create these automations. It basically records what the business user is doing manually, and then it creates a diagram, a BPMN diagram, and it also kickstarts your implementation. Then you have RPA Builder, where you actually implement the automations, and then you have the bot. So the bot it's also an application you need to install, so you can install the bot in your environment to run it locally, and you can configure the bot. So this is how the landscape would look like if you have Hyperautomation. You have your Mule APIs here in Anypoint platform, and you have your automations in your RPA bot farm. The RPA bot, and they just run on Windows Server machines. They don't support Linux or Mac. And here you have your Anypoint Exchange. So just as you can publish your APIs, you can now also publish your automations. And on the left side, you can see MuleSoft Composer. So everything is integrated. So yeah, let's see the live demo now. Let's see a little bit of this in action. Do we have any question, Brian?
I've got one online that's asking about access that's available through external IDP with roles. I think this is asking about being able to actually log into the platform.
Oh, okay. So you need to request this to your MuleSoft support, and let me see if I
don't think it was a typical sort of platform, was it?
Yeah, it's not by default. It's not part of the Anypoint platform, and it's also not available as in the trial version. So if you have just a trial version of Anypoint platform, it will not work. And so can you see here my Anypoint platform? I don't know if this will be expired session. I'll have to log in again, I think, probably. So while this is refreshing, we will just show a slide that I have, which explains the demo that I will present. So this is what I'm going to show today. So I will show you an API in Anypoint Studio that will trigger an RPA automation. So the bot will be running on my environment. It will open a legacy application. It will get some data from this e-commerce legacy application, and then it will send the data back to the API. This is basically what I will show. So if you go to your home page of your Anypoint platform, as you can see here in mine, I have in this automation section, I have RPA Manager and I have Composer, right? So and pretty soon I will also have IDP here as well. So if you don't have this, you just need to ask for it, and it will be provisioned for you if your license supports it. And well, so what I will show now, this is my Anypoint Studio here. Let me show you my API. It's actually running. So I have just two very basic flows here. This first flow, it has a request here to my MuleSoft RPA connector. So when we publish an automation in Anypoint Exchange, we can then add this module and of the automation here. In this case, is this one, RPA demo v1, and I have all of these connectors. So with this connector, I can invoke my RPA bot, and the RPA bot will run the automation, and then this will return just the execution ID, right? So this will be asynchronous. It will return the execution ID, and it will finish this flow. And here I have another flow that's a callback flow. This is a flow that the RPA bot will send a request to. So if we take a look at my automated process here, so this is how we create an automated process. We create a BPMN diagram, and for each step, we can use all of these tools here that we just basically drag and drop, and we configure. So it's a low-code, or actually no-code development environment. You just drag and drop. You have all of these tools here. You just drag and drop and configure. So here we have this one. This function here is called REST call. So with the REST call, I can invoke my API, and I will send this information to the API, the best price and the best product, which the bot will get from the user interface. So let's test this. I will go to my Postman. So the Postman will run the first flow. And this first flow is just sending a product code. So I will ask the bot to search for this product code here. All right, so just hit send. And it immediately returned the execution ID. So this is asynchronous. At this point, we sent a request to the RPA manager, asking the RPA manager to start this automation. So the RPA manager will, in this, so the automation is kind of like an API that has many endpoints. So now that my screen is starting to move by itself because the bot is starting to do the automation. So RPA manager has configured which bot will perform the automation. In this case, it's the bot that's running on my machine. So in the request, I've sent the product code, so it will type the product code there, and it will look for the best price here just by sorting this column. There we go, it just sorted, and we can see that the best store is Mega Store, and the best price is 1,800. So this is the information that the bot is getting from the legacy application. And then in the last step, it will send a request back to the API with this information that it found in the legacy application. So let's wait until it finishes. It should close, clear the search, and then close. All of these are steps that are done I've done in the automated process. It should just close this window. There we go. So it finished, the automation is finished. So let's see in the logs of my Anypoint platform if we got a request in the callback. So there we go. Here we have in the console, this was the bot who sent this request, sending the best price, 1,800 in the best store. So this is how we can easily integrate RPA with our APIs. So when we create an automation with hyperautomation, we don't need to do everything using RPA, but we can use APIs and use RPA just to unlock the data that you absolutely need to use UI automation. So let's go back to the presentation. So in case you're interested in learning, these are the resources that have everything. Now it's moving to trailblazers, right? So including the certifications exams and everything. So the Trailhead, this is your where you will get most of the resources. And if you look for the MuleSoft RPA trail mix, you will find many information there to prepare to the exam. Sorry. So to prepare for the Hyperautomation Specialist exam, you will. I also strongly recommend that you do the practice exam that you have. It's still on the MuleSoft platform, but it will probably move to Trailblaze at some point. I think you cannot do the exams at this point. You need to wait until the 6th of May when they will be available in this new platform. And so here I have some information about the certification. So what do you need to study to clear this exam? So hyperautomation, it involves many things. So it's not just MuleSoft RPA. You need to study all of these topics here. So including Anypoint is just very similar to what you will get in the MuleSoft developer exam. So if you don't have the MuleSoft developer certification, I recommend you do that first. And as you can see here, there are many questions. So Anypoint is this blue one. These questions are exactly the same kind of questions you will get in the MCD exam. Then the second most important one is MuleSoft RPA, and then also Composer. Composer is pretty important here, and some of the questions will combine 2 or 3, even 3 technologies. So I have here an example of what kind of questions you can expect in this exam. So you will get questions such as one, for example. So you're developing a solution that extracts data that contains handwritten text, and then you need to use it to create records in Salesforce. And then he's asking you two options that combined should be used to build this hyperautomation solution. So the key things here are to recognize the components of this solution. So first of all, handwritten, that's something you cannot do with an API, right? And you cannot do with Composer or anything like that. So you will need MuleSoft RPA, because MuleSoft RPA has OCR components that can actually read handwritten text. And so you can use MuleSoft RPA to grab the handwritten text. And then the easiest solution to save this data into Salesforce, you can also do it with Anypoint API, but you don't have this option here. So it wouldn't make sense to do this with Flow orchestration or with Salesforce Flow. So MuleSoft Composer, this is perfect to do this kind of integration. So in MuleSoft Composer, you have a Salesforce connector that you don't even need to know how to develop to create. You just use the connector and you can save data in Salesforce very easily. So here you will just combine these two. So these kind of questions are very common in this exam. You will also have some questions like the answer would be composer and any point or any point in RPA. So the key to clear this exam is to understand all of these tools that are part of the automation suite and understand what are they used for, and then understand how you can combine them. And also, to clear this exam, I strongly recommend you do the practice exam, not just the MuleSoft one, that's just for RPA, but in the Trailhead courses, you typically have some quizzes at the end. So if you do all of the trail mix, and then you do all of these quizzes and you practice many times, then I'm sure you can clear this exam. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the exam. If you have any other questions regarding this certification, feel free to reach out and I can help you if you want to know more about this. So that's pretty much it. I hope you could get some information about hyperautomation, and I also want to thank our sponsors, Make Sense, who I used the environment. So without Make Sense, I wouldn't be able to run this demo for you, and also Capgemini for all the infrastructure here today. And also want to thank all of the organizers, Brian and everyone from the Brisbane Meetup group. And if you have any questions, I don't know if, are there any questions online or?
No more questions online. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah, I might ask a question, but I'll just go back to the question that was online. I wasn't sure if it was actually answered. So for access to MuleSoft RPA on any platform, can roles be set?
Oh, the roles. Oh, I got it. Yeah, so the roles you would still manage on RPA Manager. So on RPA Manager, you will manage the roles, and on any point platform, you'll just grant access to the users. So I can show you.
So it might function quite similarly to any other platform features and accessibility.
So I'll log here into RPA Manager. So the roles, they used to be here in RPA Manager, but they moved to Anypoint Platform now. So they are moving things like user management also used to be here, and now it moved to Anypoint Platform as well. So yeah, that's right. It's not here anymore.
What's some of the, I guess, as a MuleSoft developer, we tend to know a lot about the integrated platform side of the exam. What sort of hints or suggestions would you give to us trying to learn Salesforce and RPA, those components that we don't typically touch in our MuleSoft implementations?
Yeah, so I would strongly recommend that you at least have some experience, some hands-on experience, at least with at least 2 out of all of these, like MuleSoft RPA and Composer, ideally, because it's difficult for us to do all of them, to actually have experience with all of them. So what I did is I practiced the MuleSoft RPA. I created a few examples, and also MuleSoft Composer, but I didn't actually did anything with orchestration or Einstein bots and flow builder. But so what I suggest is that you focus on these 3. So any point, it's just like the MCD exam. So if you have the MCD, this will be, it's actually even easier. The questions you get from any point are pretty easy. And then if you focus on RPA and Composer, and at least I am very hands-on person to learn this. I cannot just read things. I need to actually do things. So I strongly recommend you start using these tools and create a few POCs, experiment a little bit, at least with RPA and Composer. If you're into Salesforce, then Flow Builders, actually there are plenty of questions about Flow Builder. Now, orchestration, if it's not something that you will be using, there are very few questions about that. Now, this exam I did, it was last year, and the exam, the hyperautomation is something that is changing pretty fast. So I don't know if this is still applies for the next exams. We will see. Like, for example, MuleSoft IDP, it's new. Einstein, I had very few questions about Einstein bots. In my exam, I had only 1, actually, about Einstein. But Einstein Copilot is something that grew so much recently that I wouldn't be surprised if they start asking more about that. So yeah, I think let's before you apply for this exam, take a look at the documentation, because it might have. So I have this slide here where I show the weights for each topic, right? And these might have changed because RPA hyperautomation is moving really fast. So yeah, this is when I took the exam 1 year ago. So it was pretty much like this. Now, going forward, I strongly recommend you see if there are updates on the website before you actually apply. And I'm pretty sure there will be plenty of resources to go through.
Yeah. Do you have a question? We'll give another second for anyone online to ask a question. Otherwise, I think that's it. I don't see anything else online. Thanks a lot. We can probably just go onto the PowerPoint we had before and just put it up on the last page or something. That's probably fine.
Okay.
Should they stop recording, Brian?
I'll just close it off and then we can stop. I forgot to record the beginning of the session.
No, it's recording at the moment.
Oh, it was from the start?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll stop it.
Okay.